Dear participants, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. We'll now move on with the second session. And I'd like to invite our moderator, His Excellency, Mr. Parfait Onanga Anyanga, Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General for the Horn of Africa. Your Excellency, you have the floor. Please enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. And as I start this session, allow me first and foremost to warmly welcome all of you. Good afternoon, dear friends, and welcome to this session of the Tana UNESCO Joint Pre-Tana Youth Forum 2021 on transforming food systems, youth innovation for sustainable peace and security. I'm delighted to join you in this important dialogue. I would like to begin by thanking the Tana Forum, Secretariat and the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, for organizing this timely meeting on one of humanity's existential concerns in close collaboration with the Institute for Peace and Security Studies, IPSS, Addis Ababa University. Looking at the multilateral agenda, it is worth noting that our meeting aligns itself with the upcoming United Nations Food Systems Summit meeting that Secretary General Antonio Guterres is convening next September to build together a better future for food systems, a future that is, quote, strong, safe, and fair for all, unquote. I, again, warmly congratulate all participants on your interest in and leadership on the critical issues we will be discussing this afternoon. Now, if you are like me, you may be among the privileged ones who have had or will be having at least one meal today. And while we may be taking this for granted, we cannot but remind ourselves that millions of fellow human beings go hungry every day on all continents, and mostly here in Africa. This, unfortunately, is not only the plight of those trapped in armed conflict and in need of urgent humanitarian assistance. Hunger has become an expression of the ugly nature of the systemic inequality that is so characteristic of our world. And we know that things can get even worse if collective action is not undertaken. Particularly if we don't recommit ourselves to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in this last decade of action. As you may be aware, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, known as IPCC, recently published its 6th assessment report on climate change. And the future looks pretty bleak, though the expert group acknowledges that a different, more hopeful path is still possible. The assessment report warns of irreversible climate changes and extreme climate events, such as extreme heat, precipitation, and drought, which we are already experiencing in several parts of the world, including here in Africa. Our thoughts are with the people of Algeria, who are currently affected by devastating wildfires. The IPCC report also warns that the future of the planet depends in large part on the choices that humanity makes today to limit global warming, which will require significant changes in the way we do business, including in our food production systems. The impact of climate change continues to affect ecosystems, food system, and food security, which, when coupled with conflicts, growing populations, and low capacity to respond, have potentially devastating consequences on lives and livelihoods. In Africa, food insecurity is still a major concern, with over 73 million people suffering from acute food insecurity. I'm sure our colleague and friend, David Piri, highlighted these points in his earlier presentation. In the Horn of Africa alone, for example, food insecurity has reached catastrophic levels. In addition to existing challenges, such as severe flooding, droughts, unprecedented locust desert invasion, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic and the measures taken to contain the spread have had significant implications for food systems and food security in Africa. Yet, as dire as the situation may appear, we are here as prisoners of hope, to borrow from Reverend Desmond Tutu's uplifting and contagious mantra. Hope in the immense opportunities for transformative action that the vibrant African youth embodies. I am among those who strongly believe in the possibilities to leapfrog Africa's transformation through digital innovation. Of course, this would mean dedicated efforts by governments, the private sector, aid programs to narrow and close the digital divide and expand education and vocational training. As we celebrate International Youth Day, it is crucial to recognize the important role that youth play in promoting and building sustainable peace and development. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250 on youth, peace, and security acknowledges the positive role youth play in the prevention and maintenance of peace and security, as well as the importance of enabling their meaningful participation. This is consistent with the core vision of both Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063. Moreover, in our globalized world where food has become a speculative commodity, ensuring that millions of youth who constitute the bulk of the workforce get decent and fairly paid jobs must be a top priority. Likewise, in the empowerment, leadership and capacity of young women and men is crucial, because if by the sheer nature of life cycle, it is a fact that the future belongs to the youth, they have to be part of the decision-making process to shape their future today, now. This key dimension of governance can no longer be overlooked. It is indeed essential to achieve sustainable peace and development in the Africa we all want. This session will discuss youth involvement in food systems, practical experiences on youth engagement in food security, and recommend practical and operable solutions to current food security challenges. So without further ado, I will now hand over the floor to our first panelist. And maybe I should say a few words on our first panelist, just to introduce him. Mr. Romirson Deboa Esperanza Silveira is a young man from Sao Tome and Principe. He holds a law degree and is currently the president of the Pan-African Youth Network for a Culture of Peace in Africa. He is a prominent young man in Sao Tome and civil society. He is also a social activist and a defender of human and environmental rights, peace and security. He has significantly he has significant knowledge in youth programs and policies and works to empower young people and help make their voices heard in the decision-making processes. So, which is a key element of what we're trying to achieve together. So, my dear Romilson, without further ado, please, the floor is yours. Romilson, are you connected? I'm not getting any reaction from Robinson. Are you connected? Well, we seem to be having some challenges.
I don't see his name in the participants list, so maybe.
Oh, he's not with us today. Okay.
Yes, let's proceed.
So let us. Should we then move to Mrs. Chionizo Michelle Murinda? Michelle, are you with us?
Yes, I am, sir. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Michelle, let me just say a few words as a way of introducing you. I'm told, and I'm happy to learn that you are a young Zimbabwean national who undertook a BSc in peace, conflict and governance. You are a member of FarmWise Africa, and also one of the coordinators of the Community Voices for Peace and Pluralism Africa. Michelle is a delegate of the World Bank Group Youth Summit and an ambassador for the Generation Equality Global Movement. She is a member of the African Union Peace and Security Department under the Youth for Peace program, and a member of the African Union Department of Political Affairs as an election observer and in the department's political parties program. Michelle has 13 years, though still young, but Michelle has already a commendable experience in peace, security, and governance issues, holding membership in different organizations advancing the peace and security agenda. She also has been the youth representative in the development of the conflict early warning response system by Zimbabwe's National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, and also offers rapporteur services for the same commission. So Michelle, I'm sure this is just a brief presentation of your immense and amazing skills. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir. I am honored to be a participant in this esteemed platform. Salutations of the day to you all, excellencies and esteemed guests and participants. I am honored to be presenting to you this afternoon or morning, depending from where you are. Yes, I am young, and like what Sir Onanga has said, I have been privileged to be a participant in peace and security issues from a very young age due to my background. And in my young age, I have learned a lot through experience, and I've beefed that up with academics. Moving on to the business of the day, in conflict-ridden regions of the continent, political instability, unemployment, radicalization, forced migration, and the effects of climate change acutely affect young people. These threats take on a more pervasive nature when considered in the context of a rising youth population. And this has been further compounded by the advancement in social media and the shrinking political spaces in Africa. In relatively stable regions of Africa, you find that youth are also facing deepening social and economic problems. And youth population increase itself is adding to the existing problems, such as inadequate access to education and jobs. And all this, I relate it to sustainable food systems, where there are large numbers of foreign migrant arrivals and the overall pressures of urbanization, for example, rural to urban. It is putting additional stress on these African developing economies. And this is likely to reduce the economic opportunities and the well-being of young people, which is creating a vicious cycle which few are taking notice of. Efforts are already being made, though, at the global level to address issues of youth vulnerability and to empower the next generation of world leaders, such as agripreneurs, as I call them, social entrepreneurs, activists, and even champions of food security in the sustainable development. The UNSCR 2250 on youth, peace, and security provides a unique platform for meaningful dialogue on cross-cutting issues and partnerships between youth, civil society organizations, the private sector, as well as regional bodies such as the African Union and our RECs. Similarly, efforts at the national level must actively include young people. Our governments must embrace pluralism, allowing for political participation of citizens, especially the youth. And this will have a direct influence on how youth can be innovative in food systems and food sustainability. Youth must be integrated in decision-making processes across sectors, and governments can do this by establishing interagency committees on youth development, comprised of youth-focused departments that are in strategic partnerships with non-governmental stakeholders. This can then ensure effective coordination of youth development action to craft and implement national youth policies and action plans related to food systems that are feasible and measurable, and create devolved structures that ultimately support the implementation of these policies and mechanisms we are talking about. It is quite unfortunate, though, that in Africa, for reasons best known to us all, youth of today have grown and have been socialized in highly political environments where much focus is on political leadership at the expense of other facets of life. Our challenges in Africa have been so mainstreamed that we have forgotten that we need to develop our infrastructure. We need to be able to be innovative, to invest our energy away from only leadership conflicts and start harnessing other gifts, other resources that we have as a continent. Africa is still largely a rural continent. And for example, for food systems to be sustainable, we need electricity. But all we do is complain that our governments are not giving us power. And yet Africa is one of the continents with the highest time percentage of the sun. Youth need to be encouraged to channel their energies in the correct place, in the correct places where development would then reduce the number of challenges that they face, which hinder them to participating in relevant departments and aspects of their lives. And this consequently will also inform government policies. For example, in energy, if we have solar systems that are developed, then the electricity trouble in Africa will be solved. Our produce, our production will be sustained because this electricity can also sustain production in manufacturing in industries. Allow me to respectfully say that in as much as I agree to food systems being directly linked to agriculture in Africa, as a young person, my opinion is that it is not, food systems are not just in agriculture. We need to interrogate the whole system of food, the whole food system, like the production aspect of it, the manufacturing aspect of food, Is what we are producing in agriculture being value added? Is there beneficiation in it? All those questions are questions which we need to ask ourselves. Once we value add, once we benefit from them, where are we selling the produce? Where are the trade routes in Africa? Are youth involved in all those? Yes, I know they are guiding questions, and I am tactfully avoiding them because they are inclining us to studies that have already been done, to information which is already known. But if food systems are to be relevant to young people, then African leaders need to interrogate and assess where youth spend most of their time. Youth need to be involved in trade. Recently, in the beginning of the year, we saw the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is a commendable action. And as a young person, I would love to see more youth as a part of that in order to sustain the food chain, the value chain, because it is when you mainstream agriculture alone, it's like you are saying you also want to confine us in agriculture, but we also want to be involved in the trade. We want to be involved in the business. Where is the food going? Who is consuming the food? What quality of food is being produced? Because yes, we have the traditional grains, but we also need to develop the small grains to add to their quality. We have biologists, we have much education in Africa, and we need to make use of them. And I implore humbly our leaders to create the environment for us young people to be innovative, to make use of intellectual property, to register our work so that we can be a productive dividend in our continent. But the problem is the toxic political environment which is existent across Africa. You also find that for food systems to be sustainable, there is need for the development of efficient and safe transport routes. There are many countries in Africa which still face conflict, whether inter or intra. And it is difficult even for a successful farmer in a certain region to supply their produce in another region if there are attacks or if there are conflicts or if the roads are not safe. Apart from safety from conflict and attack, in other areas, there are not even roads to talk about. So how then do we develop and sustain food systems when we do not have efficient transport systems in our continent? We need to decentralize our capital cities. We need to bring the cities to the rural areas so that people do not have to move about as much. Africa has been affected a lot by the effects of the pandemic, yet it has lesser numbers of infection compared to the whole world because of this. When COVID-19 restrictions were placed, it means that those that were sustained by the cities have lesser produce to buy, and even those that were selling to the cities from the rural areas cannot go there due to the transport problem. So why not mainstream the things that facilitate the sustainability of food systems, such as transport? Youth initiatives need to be given room to flourish. With the advent of social media and the proliferation of information communication technologies, a growing number of young people are developing socially and economically profitable initiatives which improve their lives and their communities. These innovative and engaging solutions at the local level are ultimately dependent on national security policies and concerted multi-stakeholder engagement, which may either impede or facilitate their success. And this is especially true of countries which are emerging from conflict, which face particular challenges related to peace building and the involvement of youth in brokering peace. I would also humbly submit that if the world stopped defining youth by age alone, then there would be greater peace, development, and sustainability of food systems. National policies and programs will be developed more efficiently and timelessly if the definition of youth is not generalized and made simple as just calling us youth. This is greatly misleading because you find that there are 17 years to this group which you are calling youth. Is a 35-year-old youth similar or the same to an 18-year-old youth? Rather, why not call us a transitionary group? That way we are able to develop systems in our continent which can address the challenges we are facing. Because you find that even if a youth in Africa reaches 35, they are still struggling to find their footing, and they still get to 40, still struggling. And though these are the same people who become toxic adults who do not encourage development. So without development, and these food systems cannot be sustained and cannot be developed. While everyone depends on consuming food, there is need for the interrogation of our African food systems. How are we buying and selling within our provinces, within our districts, within our countries, and in our regions, in our 5 regions? We should encourage intra-Africa trade. And this will eventually, if done well, sustain our economies. And where the economy is flourishing, conflicts are less. Of course, by nature, conflicts are always going to be there, and we have to find ways of tolerating each other, but also encouraging development. And this means that the production, procurement of production requirements, the manufacturing, the distribution, the trade, like I say, are also equally mainstreamable aspects of the national agenda. You also find that in a development perspective, today's youth generation should be on the front line, coping with the effects of climate change, which are likely to accelerate and intensify during their lifetime and to those of their children. But in Africa, little is being said about climate change. Yes, studies are there, but where is the action? We have been schooled and we have been socialized to think that political leadership is all that matters. But where are our labs? Right now, in this COVID-19 pandemic, we are waiting for vaccines from other continents, and yet we should be having functional systems, rooting even from these food systems, where we can even start researching and developing our own. For how long are we going to be living in this system? And these are the questions that as young people we are asking. For how long are we going to be dependent? Yet the whole world is extracting raw materials from our continent and creating these vaccines and bringing them back to our continent. And this is not just for vaccines, this is for food as well. And I would also like to humbly say that the way in which food is currently produced, processed, consumed, and distributed in Africa and in our countries is highly unsustainable, both from an ecological and a social perspective. Like I have said, Africa is largely a rural country which has low levels of rural transformation in national economies. And this is for youth, the opportunities from the challenges. Who then is creating the space for youth to be included in all these things I am talking about? How then can we be involved if we are seen as offenders and we are seen as a threat? When is the time going to come when youth are going to be seen as equal stakeholders in society? Not just because we are many, but because we are human beings who equally should have a say on what happens in their lives. And I would also want to humbly say, instead of just talking about youth inclusion, youth participation, our governments, our CSOs, NGOs, and every stakeholder should start thinking about funding youth participation. Youth are poor, And even for youth to own lands to produce this food, they cannot afford to buy a farm. They cannot afford to buy a plot. Those that can afford will likely not be able to acquire it because the banks require collateral. Where are we going to be getting that? So already our inclusion in the sustainability of food systems is limited. It is only going to be for the elite youth who are born of rich families or who are strategically linked. So I am yearning for that day when the inclusion of youth and the participation of youth is going to be funded at a continental level and at national levels. Of course, I know that the development of countries is contextual and countries are at different evolution levels. But then if without funding these participatory and inclusion youth programs, we are just going to be talking for the next 20 years and nothing is going to change. As recommendations, I would like to implore relevant stakeholders to start including youth in the mapping and in the formulation of policies. It is very unfair that our leaders or our in other spectrum of life formulate policies and frameworks and invite youth after they have finished. Why not include youth from the mapping and from the planning process itself? The socio-economic environment should improve, as well as institutional support to the youth, because you will find that many and plenty youth are now losing interest in that which is important. That's why you are seeing high level of delinquent behavior, because those who cannot fight, those who cannot become activists, those who are not joining rebel groups are just becoming delinquent. They are taking drugs. They are just living, waiting to die. So Michelle, it is time.
Michelle, if I may, I guess you're closing now, right? You're wrapping up.
Yes, I am wrapping up. Thank you so much.
This has been extremely, thoughtful, but yet we have to manage time. But really great stuff. Please go ahead.
In closing, I would like to encourage that policies and strategies play an important role in the creation and enabling of an environment for youth engagement in agriculture and production, including fostering transparency, accountability in the policy system, and promoting youth engagement in the private sector through agricultural extension and other services. Youth also need to be encouraged to network among themselves. You find that Africa is fastly becoming an informal economy, and informal gatherings of youth in agriculture should be encouraged and sustained in order to sustain the food systems in our continent. With that, I thank you so much.
Wow, Michelle, I mean, there is a lot that we can say following your extremely powerful and comprehensive presentation. This is a real tour de force because you really brought us to look at things, interrelation between aspect that we may otherwise consider totally disconnected. I think this is precisely the kind of innovative thinking that is required for the kind of transformative change that we need for the continent. And I'm really humbled to say that you have brought to the conversation aspects of our conversation that would be not necessarily coming to mind, but at the end of the day, I think really here we can see the primacy of politics. Politics in its generic term as the place and the institution that provides for each and every society and for each and every region here, talking about Africa, to come together with a global vision that could precisely ensure that we tap into the immense potential that exists in the continent, not only looking at youth, but at all aspects of society. And therefore, really, I can only thank you for your brilliant presentation. I'm sure the Secretariat has taken, very detailed notes of everything you have said. And if you could share your presentation, of course, with the Secretariat, I think this would be highly appreciated. But we will come back to what you've just said during the discussion segment of the session. But again, kudos, thank you so much for everything you have just shared with us. Now, I'm just informed that our first speaker has now joined us. Robinson, are you connected? If so, you may please take the floor.
Hello?
Excellent. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Oui, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Ron Wilson. I'm the president of the Pine Corp. It's a Pan-African Youth Union Organization for Peace. My English is acceptable, but I will do it in French. I will just take off my video. D'abord,
sorry, Robinson, before you proceed. I'm just checking with the Secretariat if this is fine. I guess we have translation, right? Interpretation, right? I'm seeking advice from the Secretariat. Do we have interpretation to allow Robinson to speak in French?
Yes, absolutely. We do have a translator, so he can proceed through French. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Please go ahead, Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you. Oui, bonjour à tous. Je voulais remercier d'abord le secrétariat pour l'invitation à cet forum de haut niveau pour donner ma contribution en tant que jeune et président du réseau panafricain de la jeunesse pour la culture de la paix. D'abord, pour dire que c'est un réseau qui était émané du forum de l'Union africaine, du chef de l'État de l'Union africaine et du gouvernement. Et c'est une des recommandations.
The African Union has of its meeting, and we created a network of youth for peace and culture. And this network was born since 2014. And regarding the theme, innovation, and peace, youth innovation for sustainable peace and security, I would like to say that at our level, at our network level, it's a network that is represented in many countries, in 44 African countries with the diaspora. We have a representation at the continental level in various regions of Africa, in Central Africa, East, West, Southern, and Western Africa. Regarding this youth innovation for sustainable peace and security, Africa is always confronted to challenges. The first one is for its independence, and today we have other types of challenges. First, it was the independence in the past. After this independence, we had different conflicts in the different regions in our continent, which was an obstacle to its development. and then crisis, wars, famine, refugees, crisis. And the image that we have of Africa is bleak. And today we have other responsibilities, and we want to have a different outlook of Africa. And this is why we, the youth, we have set up this network. And at Bangkok, we have a few projects that I can share with you. For example, in Cameroon, we launched training with the support of UNESCO, and we were able to train 40 youth in different regions. And we trained 5 clubs, youth clubs for peace. And these youth will be peace ambassadors in their communities. And in this training, we focused on leadership prevention, conflict prevention. So we have noticed that there are a lot of youth that have not been trained in the rural community mostly. And here we thought about introducing and discussing with our partners such as UNESCO. We try to set up a project on prevention and conflict management, because prevention of conflict, we have we have leadership issues, ethnic issues, regional conflict, and so forth. And when the youth have nothing to do, or if they're not trained, or if they are jobless, they can do both good and bad things. So we wanted to train these youths, give them some capacity, build their capacity in relation to this project. So the youth were able to set up their social companies or enterprises. They created small enterprises. When the state is not there to help them, it is a way for them to be encouraged to create their own jobs. And we were able to target 40 youth, and we were able to train 5 clubs, 5 peace clubs. And we have a cross-border project as well in 3 countries: Gabon, Chad, and in Cameroon. Why did we do this? With the crisis that was going on in Chad and the region of Great Lakes, Chad, Gabon, and Cameroon, these are countries that border each other. And with the help of United Nations, in Cameroon, we targeted 1,800 youth that took part in this project that has already started. And in Chad, we trained 1,400 youths, and in Gabon, 800. So what does that mean? So we took all these youth in these 3 different countries, and we trained them in different areas: entrepreneurship training, leadership training, in conflict management, and cultural training. This is another area that we believe where they can make money. So when we train these youth, these youth have more hope. And we do believe that we can help this youth. But in reality, when the youth have project, most of the time they don't have financing. This is one of the main challenges. They don't have training, they don't have financing. It is also important to look at the technical training so that these youth can create their own jobs, because in Africa, we have a lot of people that have diplomas, but also we can help the youth in other areas, such as being a mechanic or any other type of job. So we train them and we try to see what our needs are, and we discuss with them and discuss with partners so that we can find solutions for their problems. I also have an example from my own country, Sao Tome and Principe. For the time being, we are going through an electoral process. The first round was held on the 17th August. So we have 19 candidates for the presidential elections. 2 of them have been retained for the second round, and the political class did not reach a consensus for a second round. So our country is going through a difficult moment currently. So we are going through a crisis. So what are we planning to do? 2 weeks ago, we organized a debate and we invited the youth that are in the political parties, and we tried to see how we can bring an end to this political election crisis. And up till now, we haven't done the second round, and we are still waiting. Last week, there was a coup d'etat attempt, and with the youth, we created a committee, and to call on the different political parties for peace. So we have to listen to the youth, and we have to organize the youth, and we have to listen to the youth. So this is my recommendation. So I'd like to thank the Secretariat for the Tana Quorum for this opportunity. And we will continue to work for the African youth, and I am available to take your questions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Romilson, for your extremely rich presentation and the concrete example of activity that you have been undertaking as well. Can you switch off your mic, please? But thank you very much for this presentation, this very rich presentation. Like Michel mentioned it earlier, we see the important role that the youth can play, especially in post or pre-electoral processes and political stabilization. And congratulations for all these initiatives. And your call for listening to the youth is important, and your call for investing on the youth brings us back to what Michel said, and it resonates very well with all of us, and as well as the fact that we need to invite the decision makers.
Eskinder, please, if you could address the meeting, but before, let me just say a few words on introductory comments to share with the participant who you are. I'm told you hold a degree in agronomy from Mekelle University, Ethiopia. You have experience in humanitarian work supporting food production by refugees and smallholder farmers in South Sudan, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. You lived abroad and came back home in 2018, where you set up a social enterprise for Food Secure Schools Africa, which has reached thousands of school pupils and taught more than 300 parents from disadvantaged backgrounds to produce organic vegetables. Congratulations. I mean, this is impressive. Your work has been acknowledged by the government of Ethiopia and international bodies such as Social Entrepreneur of the year 2019. By UNDP, you are acknowledged with this important reward. Just to complete, yes, other bodies, other institutions such as the Social Entrepreneur by Reach for Change Sweden, Lush Spring Pride, Young Projects Shortlist 2021. Anyway, again, these presentations are always unfair because they don't tell the whole story about the amazing thing that you guys are doing. But without further ado, please, Eskinder, the floor is yours.
Okay, I would like to thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Onanga. I'm very much also devoted to the organizers of Tana Forum team. So let me proceed to the issue. It is very relevant to discuss about the African youth and the agriculture, because I believe Africa is the future, and the youth are the players of this future. So I'm from a country, food security means a lot. Just to be honest, agriculture is a lifeline for Africa. So it has been said a lot. And I would like to say, we Africans, we need to move forward aggressively to address the issue of food security. We have been waiting for the last 30, 40 years to be food secured. Still, we are crumbling, and then we didn't do that great jobs. Of course, there are some good experience, as Mr. Moderator Onanga said. I've been in many different African countries. That clearly shows that agriculture could actually be the future of this continent. So we should treat agriculture as a business. The problem and the bottleneck of our youth and the challenge going forward, though, how to get youth interested in agriculture. That is the challenge for all of the heads of states and the leaders and all concerned bodies. So youth are not interested in agriculture. Why? Why they are not interested in agriculture? Because of three things. I can think of three good reasons why youth are not interested in agriculture. The first is access to land and access to finance are the basic things. In my country, for example, the land policy is really not workable. It is very locked. It is the land policy has to be revised. The other thing is access to finances. When I come from Uganda, I think Uganda is much better than Ethiopia when it comes to access to finance, because there are many international banks. So the finance sector is already liberalized. So in our country, it is locked. The banks private banks are not into agriculture. They are based on urban areas. They are not going to the rural areas. So the youth cannot get access to finances. So I think this has to be underlined, that finance is the basic thing to start up agriculture. The other thing I want to mention is also social media. Most of the young Africans, including myself, are engaged in many social medias such as Facebook and any other social medias, and then they are into music and many other useless things. So they have to focus on agriculture. For example, people has to aggressively post about agriculture, our experience. I'm very sorry that in Ethiopia, I cannot see people posting about agriculture. They are posting about politics, posting about conflicts, and posting about, putting a gun, and they say that they are brave enough to go and kill. But it's very unfortunate that I haven't seen people posting that I produce this in my backyard or doing agricultural activities. So this has to be corrected. So I think the experience of Uganda is really interesting to see, because in Uganda, youth are mobilized and organized by the government. That's why I have seen when I was in Uganda, people, especially the youth, are interested in agriculture because they make money out of agriculture. They see agriculture as a business. It's not a philanthropy or a social sector, but this is clearly a lucrative business. So I think this has to be also underpinned with a good political will. The other thing I want to focus on is, Mr. Moderator, Africa has a great potential. They say we were going to be a $1 trillion market by 2030. Are you ready for this? Do the youth are really mobilized and organized? So the heads of states and the leaders has to think how we can get all this done in Africa. For example, if I mentioned my experience here in Ethiopia, I am doing school gardens to create social entrepreneurs. This is a very important point, because if you have social entrepreneurs in agriculture, if they know that they can make money out of this sector, it is quite easy for them to come into the sector. So we should know which subsector of agriculture is a business. So, for example, in my view, we can do seed banking, for example. Now we are importing quality seeds from Europe, America, and we are controlled by these few multinationals, a handful of multinationals who are controlled our food in this time of age. So we should change this paradigm by creating an environment that the youth of Africa can actually be working as seed providers, quality seed providers. And this subsector is $1 million market. And when I come to Ethiopia from Uganda, it is very unfortunate. All of the seeds are imported entirely from Europe. So what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for Jesus Christ to come back and tell us agriculture is the best sector for Africa to prosper? I think our future is based on agriculture. As an Africans, we should focus in agriculture. There is no any other sector that in history, and of course, in many African countries, agriculture is the only way out of poverty. And it's proven.
You may go on.
Yeah, can I proceed?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Onanga. So I think I can wind up saying few things about our use. So there are three very important factors that actually bring peace to our continent. For example, in our country now, we are in a conflict that the root cause is agriculture, in my view, as an agronomist. People are fighting for farmland. People are fighting for a food. People are fighting in general for survival. So that's very natural for a human being to fight for its survival. And if agriculture is being flourished, if agriculture is actually treated well, the conflict can be reduced and could be more sustainable. So 3 pointers I mentioned, and I will wind up. The first point is we need more practitioners. As you know, Mr. Onanga, I can mention Hussein Bolt or Haile Gebrselassie or Kenenisa Bekele, who are great runners in marathon. So these people are practitioners, and they now created or inspired many athletes in Jamaica, Ethiopia, even in Kenya. There are great runners in Kenya as well. So we need practitioners who can follow the example like in agriculture. So I haven't seen or heard in the entire continent that man who is rich out of agricultural wealth. There is no a rich man that can say my wealth is coming from agriculture. It is clearly says that this sector is neglected. So we are based in agriculture. Most of our rich people are from different sectors like manufacturing or construction or etc. So I want to be the first multimillionaire of agriculture business. So wish me luck for that. So the third thing and the last is just we have to mobilize users and exchanging good experiences. For example, I brought the Ugandan good experience to Ethiopia. So it is very doable and workable. Now I have Ugandan models in the school gardens and doing well here. So now I have all those achievements that you mentioned before when you introduced me. So I am very much happy to deliver this message. I think the message is very well taken, and I thank you.
I thank you, Eskinder, for this testimony. I think you're talking from experience. You are a living example of what agriculture can do to transform the continent. And I can only really wholeheartedly wish you well, and I can assure you that when you become this $1 million businessman, I will apply for a job with you. But no, simply to say that it is absolutely remarkable, and really to see that of all your three presentations, really you're coming down to the same practical kind of conclusion that we need to move away from politics, toxic politics, to borrow Michel's word, into really concrete deliverables, concrete investments in agriculture and in food systems, because as you pointed out, it's not only about producing food, but also really, as Michel mentioned earlier, the whole value chain, and trading. You have already this experience over different countries within the region. So the potential is absolutely huge. And as I was invited to discuss with you this afternoon, I think I was faced with this, when you put food and security together, you're struck by the contrast that Africa's massland is absolutely the biggest, on earth. The potential for growing in Africa is immense. And then you come across security, which has been indeed for the past few decades, compromised by again exclusive politics, and this is where indeed the primacy of politics is extremely important to ensure that as we live in this very rich and diverse society, we know how to live in peace and harmony, and make this diversity precisely an opportunity to make Africa stronger rather than dividing it further. So I'm really inspired, and I thank you so much for everything you're doing. And with these few comments, we can now move on to Sheila Salim. If Sheila is with us, Sheila is another youth team leader for sustainable development with the Kilifi chapter, which is a youth-led organization whose mission is to promote an inclusive community by providing tools, platforms, and skills necessary to address political and socio-economic development in Kilifi County, and also works as a food system champion with VSO Kenya, aiming to accelerate and enhance meaningful youth engagement for sustainable food system. So Sheila, I'm sorry for this brief presentation, but again, I think what you will tell us will complement anything that I've missed. But for now, the floor is yours. Over to you, Sheila.
Thank you very much, Mr. Onanga. Yes, as brief, the introduction was brief, but it captured all things that I do. So my name is Sheila Salim. I come from Kenya. I'm the team lead for Youth for Sustainable Development, which is a community-based organization. Kilifi County, it's one of the counties in Kenya. And I've been privileged to work with VSO Kenya, which is Voluntary Service Overseas in Kenya. And that is where my initiations to food systems and understanding food systems started. So I'll start off there by just a brief story of how my interest in agriculture began. So while in high school, I used to take agriculture. It used to be one of the lessons here in the Kenyan syllabus. So I was in primary school where I was in the 4K club. So these were the clubs that the government had put in place just to enhance skills for young people. Then when I went to my high school, that is the Form 1 to Form 4, I used to take agriculture just as a side lessons because it is one of the easiest lessons that could earn you an A. So the easiest way for me to get an A was to do agriculture because it was easy. But later on now, with my work with BSO, which started last year, we now, as you all know, the theme for this year is basically focusing on young people, especially innovation around food systems. We started working on a research. And this research, we were able to work across 5 counties in Kenya. So I'll mention them. We have Kilifi, we have Makueni, we have Nairobi, we have Machakos, and we have Taita Taveta, and we have Bungoma. So why we were doing this research was basically just to provide a platform for young people to see what are they saying about agriculture. Are they involved in food security system initiatives? And if they're involved, what level of involvement are they given? So we did our research. And one thing was very clear that policies, and like my previous presenter have already said, that policies play a very big role in ensuring that we have sustainable and conducive environment for food systems to work and to thrive. And we talk about policies, now this is where now we are talking about young people. Are young people involved in the formulation of these policies? Are they able to understand these policies? What is put in these policies? And as this policy is speaking to the young people? And I know one of the presenters said social media. Social media is a very big component, especially for young people. Are we able to integrate the use of social media and food systems to ensure that people understand the role that they have in food systems to ensure, because when you talk about food systems, you're talking about food security. And even when looking at some of the policies we have outside food system, we talk about peace in Africa. And for people to have peace, you need to have people who are energetic, who have strength. And where do they get their strength from? They get their strength from food. And this now forms the basis of why we need to look at food systems at a wider angle. These people need to be strong. How do we ensure that they're strong? We need to ensure that they have accessibility to food. The food that they are able to access is affordable. And also, it's nutritious, not just any food, nutritious food. And this is now where we also now bring the aspect of innovation. What innovations are there to ensure that we have good food systems that produce this nutritious food? So just to highlight some of the findings that we got, or some of the key messages that young people across the counties that we work with were able to come up with, was one, there is need also to shift the focus from agriculture for business to a right-based normative framework of developing policies. We need a consumer-oriented commercial model that has proven expensive in terms of climatic and ecological destruction. This has also led to a huge number of undernutrition and obese, which are some of the common things that we face right now. We have high cases of malnutrition. We also have a lot of people who are obese at the moment. And this also has resulted in apathy among small-scale farmers as a struggle with the rising cost of inputs. And when you look at the number of people who are involved in the food system, especially the small-scale farmers, most of them are saying the cost of production is too high for us, or either we do not have the right machineries, or even if we have the right machineries, we do not know how to use these machineries, because you'll find that most of them, the machineries that they are using, were either provided by either government agency through some of the programs that the government of Kenya has introduced, which is also the same across other African countries, or they're done by the civil society organization. So for example, you'll have World Vision providing either tractor to a young farmer to do farming, but are they able to sustain that tractor to ensure that they are producing food that is nutrition and also that is easily accessible, even to take them to the market where they are sold? Another key message that we were also to come up with was policies around policies and SDGs. So we found that agriculture has a role to deliver on the Leave No One Behind agenda and sustainable development goals. So the Youth for Sustainable Development of Kenya are calling for the excluded population to access, but for excluded population to be able to participate and their meaningful presentation in decision regarding their involvement in archaeology for inclusive livelihood. And this policy must be developed and delivered in an inclusive and participatory manner. And I would like to emphasize on the issue of participatory manner, that we need to ensure that these policies, people are involved in writing this policy. And that is why we have, for example, the public participation programs in different countries and also in different communities. Are we able to get that small-scale farmer down there at the river, near the river banks, to be able to take part in the development of some of these policies? Another recommendation session of small-scale farmers and how they can favor the farmers. Awareness should be through all available platforms. This is both online and offline. Again, innovation and the digital space. These are very key areas where you'll find farmers, I can't really remember her name, but says we need to make agricultural sexy. So how do we make this agricultural sexy? We need to now incorporate, how do we package our messages to be able to reach young people over social media pages, Facebook, and they widely use now TikTok. Another key messages is
Un autre message clé.
Sorry? And also another thing also to note is that we also need, towards the realization of all this vision above, that there is also need to cushion you from the the vulnerability of climate change. This has also been mentioned by
Il faut aussi sensibiliser les jeunes sur les vulnérabilités du changement climatique. Nous avons eu le problème des criquets pèlerins.
So again, and then also another thing I'd also like to mention is the political
environment. Que j'aimerais mentionner, c'est l'environnement politique.
Plays a big role in our African countries.
Nous savons que les politiques jouent un rôle important sur notre continent.
Political environment where
et de mettre en place des
conditions that
politiques
are favorable to enable young people to engage. Because once you don't have a stable political environment, then these young people are not able to fully engage. And also in terms of political goodwill, can we now see our leaders also as they plan to get on their podiums talking about can you vote for me? Can we also see them speak about supporting agriculture? What incentives are they giving us? How much are those incentives going to give us? And also another buy-in should be, as we are giving these incentives, we should also be able to give our returns back. What are we giving back as a return for young people? Because most of the time, we speak about just being given, but what are we also giving back in return? And as I conclude my presentation also, is also just to note that even the UN Food System Summit that is coming up in September has 4 clear action tracks. And I hope after this also the young people will be able to look at those action tracks fully and conclusively so that they are able to know what are the action tracks saying. Where is our role in this action track? If it is the action track about boosting nature production, how can we make production affordable and accessible for these young people? If it is talking about sustainability, how are we going to make agriculture sustainable for these young people? Is it, for example, by giving them funds to be able that they have investment in machineries that allow them to explore the new ways of producing food for people, and also how to, another component is also on waste management, because as you consume food, we know you also have waste, both waste from the food production and even as a human being. How do we then turn human waste into biogas? Because once we turn into biogas, then this is also where you're making sure that you are utilizing all resources available. And also another recommendation was also for young people to be able to understand all the policies. For example, how many of us here are aware that in the Maputo Protocol of 2003, that it specifically puts an allocation of 10% of all national budget allocations to be directed towards agricultural development? Are we as young people able to even follow up the aspect of social accountability? Are we able to hold our leaders accountable to make sure that this 10% is really allocated towards agriculture? And if they are allocating the 10% towards agriculture, what are they allocating it for? Because if they are just allocating it for machineries, then you also need to question, why are you just allocating it for machineries? Because while you're putting machineries, you also need to consider the human resource. For example, if you've invested 2 million in buying of tractors, who are the people going to drive those tractors? The people driving those tractors, do they have strength enough to be able to drive those tractors? And if they have strength enough, how are you going to utilize their strength? Yes, so thank you. That is my presentation, and I'll be looking forward to the question.
Thank you so very much, Sheila, for this extremely interesting and personal, really going from personal to policy level contribution to making agriculture meaningful for the African continent and linking it to the global. I like your point on reminding, also the role that the youth can do to, give back to the society, but certainly by also scrutinizing commitment made by African leaders, especially on this 10% of national budget invested into agriculture. That's an extremely good point, which shows that the matter is not new to the continent, but what might have been a problem so far is on implementation. And therefore, it brings us really back into the broader issue of making, agriculture, food system as part of the societal, really developmental project and transformative project of Africa, not only as, looked through the narrow angle of maybe agricultural production, but really as an entry point for transformative policies and actions continent-wide, and of course, country by country. So it's a big, big agenda. I think really we've been colleagues and friends on the call. We've been really gifted to listen to these four amazing speakers, they made the presentation in a very concise and timely fashion. So we still have around an hour or so to go, 45 minutes for the discussion. So I can see that some of the participants have already shared either questions or made comments on the chat. Let me see. We have one participant from Rwanda. Thanks for the organizer for inviting. That's not a question. Let me go further down. And while I'm reading the questions here, I could invite participants to just raise their hand and take the floor to go live, so that, and I'm also inviting the speakers to go through the chat box and see whether they have relevant questions that point that they want to discuss or respond to. Kwasi Sarpong, you have your hand raised, and please, the floor is yours. Great, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Important discussion, and I have a contribution, a practical example to share. We need to expose the young people to field, we call it farmer field school, so that they acquire the practical hands. For example, whether the person has finished senior high school or university, if you spend like 6 weeks to acquire a particular skill, for example, in how to grow cassava, the benefit of it, they'll be able to generate. I'm a living example of it. I never had studied agriculture, but when I had the opportunity to be exposed to agriculture, I was able to develop 21 products out of cassava. And in 2019, I received a national award by the president because the product has never been invented in this world. Value addition. What we need is the practice. For example, in Ghana, every young person from the elementary school to the senior high school before you go to college, university, you study agriculture as a core subject. Meanwhile, most of us do not have jobs. So the field, the space, the agriculture practice, the space to be able to practicalize it. I have met
sorry, you're breaking up.
In agriculture, you ask them how many months they have degrees in agriculture. So farmers, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Akwasi, for your absolutely pertinent comment. I think you're right. It has to be, through practice. It has to be valued. It has to be taught, and through these different, opportunities, we can see huge possibilities of indeed adding value to agriculture. So congratulations and thank you for your absolutely pertinent comment. Do we have other hands raised? Please, we still have time to respond or to comment before our speakers are given a chance to come back. Any other requests for comments? Hey, the youth, please, this is your meeting. This is your opportunity. This is the time for the people's voice to be heard. And we are roughly 38 on the call. So please, don't be shy.
Oui, est-ce que je peux parler, faire un commentaire sur ça?
Bon, bah, pourquoi pas, on va avoir une session interactive. So, Romilson, among the speakers, is asking for the floor. Please go ahead, Romilson. La parole.
Okay, merci.
Voilà, vous pouvez parler. Voilà.
Par rapport au commentaire, en fait, ou bien la question, je parle que le collègue vient de dire, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec cette proposition. C'est vrai, il faut que l'agriculture, l'Afrique adopte une politique culturelle et que soit doit rentrer aussi dans le curriculum scolaire. Et aussi amener l'agriculture, en fait, oui, il faut que l'agriculture soit attractive, soit attractive pour les jeunes. Pour les jeunes. Parce que nous avons toujours l'habitude de regarder de l'agriculture comme les gens pauvres, pour les gens qui restent au milieu rural. Mais quand on regarde les journaux, on voit une dame veille, fatiguée. Voilà l'image qu'on transmet de l'agriculture. Il faut qu'on change ça. Il faut que les jeunes voient que c'est important de faire l'agriculture. Donc, oui, la politique d'agriculture doit être changée vraiment, que ça peut être attractif. L'accès aussi à la terre pour cultiver. C'est un problème que les jeunes ils ont. Par exemple, chez moi, un petit pays comme moi, avec 1000 km², il y a des difficultés parce que les gens pendent la maison en train d'arriver, les gens en train de construire dans le milieu rural. Donc, le champ pour cultiver, ça devient chaque fois rare. Ouais, il faut qu'on doit réfléchir sur ça, amener les jeunes ou bien amener l'agriculture vers les jeunes ou les jeunes vers l'agriculture. Il est très important. Parce que l'agriculture est l'avenir. Et c'est ça la potentiel de l'Afrique et sa jeunesse. Il faut qu'on doit profiter sur ça. Parce que ce n'est pas qu'on va arriver à 2050 quand nous avons un nombre de populations. C'est après qu'on va commencer à réfléchir. C'est à partir d'ici. C'est à partir de maintenant qu'on doit le faire. Et l'agriculture, c'était très important. Et d'autres choses aussi que je voulais dire, c'est au niveau curriculaire, c'est en termes d'une discipline, je pense, de formation civique. Formation civique, parce que je remarque qu'il y a beaucoup d'indicateurs, comment je dis, en poli. Les jeunes ne sont pas aussi des tours de politesse avec le valeur qu'on avait avant. Parce qu'ils sont perdus. On ne respecte pas les gens aujourd'hui. Et c'est un problème au niveau de la jeunesse. Et d'autres Français, j'amène ça parce que j'ai constaté ça. Les gens ont toujours de penser que le pays, il est déjà un propriétaire. Il a déjà, parce qu'il a des hommes politiciens, de grands businessmen, qui fait croire vraiment que le pays lui appartient. Et les jeunes cultivent cette mentalité qu'ils n'ont pas aucune responsabilité. Donc, bon, ils ne font rien. Ils n'ont aucune responsabilité par rapport au pays. Voilà la contribution que j'amène sur ce point. Et je pense vraiment qu'on doit voir l'agriculture comme une opportunité pour sortir ou faire face à l'emploi, à l'employabilité que nous avons. Je m'excuse de mon français parce que je suis lusophone. Donc, j'essaie de parler le français et aussi un peu d'anglais. Vraiment, je m'excuse.
Non, non, non. Merci beaucoup, Robinson. Il n'y a aucune excuse à faire. Ce sont toutes des langues empruntées, hein. Et donc, ton expression est bien reçue et l'accent que tu mets sur la nécessité de faire de l'agriculture un domaine plus attractif, hein, je crois qu'il est important. Il rejoint bien le commentaire que Sheila a fait avant, qui consistait justement, et aussi Skinner, hein, qui consistait à faire en sorte que les médias sociaux soient utilisés.
And we also should use social media, whereby we present an attractive image of agriculture, and to take it as a business where we can succeed. Thank you.
To raise the comments you shared in the chat box on the development of crops and seeds, or it could be a question to one of the speakers, maybe a Skinner, how to solve the whole issue of GMOs. Is something that maybe one of the speakers want to address. Do we have other requests for the floor? I see here one question. Does the Tana, this is coming from Fatuma, to everyone, does Tana Forum or AU plan to organize a meeting of African leaders to discuss and make concrete commitments towards agriculture and support the youth-related initiatives before the World Food Summit? So this is a question. I don't know if some of us are aware of plans in this regard by the AU, but it's a good question. Bashir, how can we encourage sharing ideas amongst youth from different African countries? Do we need more webinars? That's certainly one way of addressing it. Or conferences on food sustainability. Do we need to develop platforms or training for youth to develop their capacities? All great questions. So, colleagues, you may wish to raise your hand, and Sheila, Sheila, your hand is raised. Please go ahead.
So I'll take up the question of one, how do we encourage sharing of ideas? Yes, we still do need more conferences. We still need more webinars so that more young people are able to understand what agriculture entails. Because most of the time, when you tell a young person about agriculture, all they think about is that equipment on the hand and then farming. We call it a djembe here. For them just to have the djembe in the hand so that they're able to just dig a hole and plant the seed. But there's a lot more that goes into that. Like I said before, we can stand with first understanding the policies in our countries. Do we know what policies are there? For example, here in my small county, we do even have a policy of how people are supposed to slaughter animals, which is something I didn't know about, but I came to realize that it's called the Abattoirs Bill. So it's also in terms of interest. Can we also, young people, develop interest so that we are able to follow up on our leaders, social accountability again? Can we ask our people what agriculture was? How was agriculture then? How is it now? How we can come in? And also another resource pack that we usually forget is the older generation. The older generation are a key source of information. Can we take the information that they have, package it so that it speaks to us? If they give us information, can we either package it in a poster and share, for example, on the Tana Forum's Facebook page, which I know they have? And then if we get some of this information, are we also able to either use the radio station, because most of us like listening to radio or music? Can we package it in form of a song so that young people are able to listen more? And then in terms of also For individuals with prior knowledge but have an interest in agriculture and food sustainability, what resources are available? Like I had mentioned earlier, that the upcoming summit for the UN Food System Summit, they have a website. So there has been very many dialogues going on at the moment. You can log on onto the website, listen to the different dialogues, especially for young people. Just log on, listen to what are the young people, even from other countries, just saying. If you're from Zimbabwe, if you're from Kenya, can you compare the information that Kenya young people said? Can you compare the information that young people in Zimbabwe said? Then try and find your fit. If you are the person that can either not drive a tractor, can you be able to either analyze a policy that is in your country? And someone mentioned about the farmers' school field. I remember I think it's also a concept that is still there. We used to call them the extension officers. Can you look for this agricultural extension officer, an area that will still call for investment, even from our government? Can they still invest in these people who are able to share this knowledge with young people so that they go to their villages and give them this information? That's my input. Thank you, Onanga.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for these concrete responses. I see that, Michelle, you are also made some comments. I don't know if you want to come live.
Thank you so much, sir. I am noticing that when people are told about agriculture, mostly they think about crop husbandry, but that's a wide field which also includes animal husbandry. And as Africa, we can make use, it's not all land that is arable. Yes, we have a good climate, but we have many rivers, we have many lakes in Africa, and we can make use of them by harvesting fish, fisheries. That's a good market, which will also provide a highly nutritional diet even to those who are facing malnutrition. And we have those regions which are in conflict. It's easier for food to be in the form of animals than crops. So we can also make use of that. For now, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you for this contribution, Michelle. And it borrows a lot from ancient history. I learned recently that in the early ages of human life, indeed, hunters and were more prolific than those who were investing in agriculture. And indeed, in view of the many proteins that they were able to get through animals, they were best at how to put it, at accessing nutritional food and energy, because at the end of the day, it's all about energy processing, energy production. So that's an important comment, and that's why we need to have this absolutely comprehensive view when it comes to agriculture. So where we are, I think we can now, if I'm not seeing any more. Akwesi is raising his hand. So Akwesi, you will take the floor, and after you, I think we will go back to the different presenters. We start with Sheila to get us, their kind of closing comments on this absolutely rich conversation that we have just had. But before that, Akwesi, please, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you once again for the opportunity. I believe you can hear me. Thank you for the opportunity again to speak on this. I just observed that a colleague on the chat is asking if someone has an interest, no knowledge, prior knowledge, and is interested in agriculture. And I just want to share that the young people, if you are part of it and you're a young person, you have a responsibility. And that responsibility is also to look out for information. Look out for these opportunities. They are there. If you go to your district or your local community, they have these things there. The young people have responsibility to look out for this. If you show the interest, I can tell you, in my part of the world in Ghana, these opportunities are there. So the young people have the responsibility to look for this information in their communities and online so that they can tap into this practical. When I got that, most young people now too have developed it because the information they look from their own colleagues who are doing something. So that responsibility, we must also make sure that we, the young people, we're taking it upon ourselves to say we are looking for information in agriculture, whether it's animal husbandry, livestock, crop farming, fish farming, aquaculture, or whatever. And I can tell you what we are doing to promote a lot of the food system in terms of nutrition, in terms of food security. So it's so important that we develop that responsibility to look for agriculture-related information, practical hands-on, which exists. And none of them have developed. That already exists. And the young people must look out for. You spend 2 hours online. Use 30 minutes to find practical videos on that or rare animals, livestock, or undertake a particular agriculture thing. It will help you to be able to add value and you will not the system. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Akwasi, for this brilliant comment. And it brings me back to an earlier point that we made. My belief in the possibilities and opportunities that the digital, tools that we have at our hands could help Africa really leapfrog and close any divide, any gap that is still holding back, progress and development. And in this regard, as some of you have already made that point, on many occasions, on experience sharing, and I think Skinder, you'll be asked to speak later on this. You may wish, I don't know how this is possible, maybe the Tana Forum could help develop this, or IPSS. Maybe you need to establish a dedicated platform, on to facilitate networking among all of African youth interested in really making this a real sector for business opportunity and development of personal and of course societal development. So I'm really hopeful that this conversation and the Tana Forum itself, I saw from some of the reactions here that indeed these matters will be brought to the attention of the leaders, so that there is indeed a conducive environment that is created to enable youth to have not only this vocational training and knowledge, but also access. Access is fundamental, as you have highlighted it so well, on access to land reform, access to funding, access to knowledge. I think all of these are still absolutely untapped and needs to be further developed to ensure that the combination of all this, including of course the possibility to trade more easily across countries within the continent with the CFTA. I mean, all of these are great opportunities that will need to be indeed tapped on to unleash the amazing potential that I'm listening to tonight, this afternoon. So I don't know if Michelle, you want to come back here, but as we go into closing, I wanted to move. You will be the last speaker. Move backwards, and we have Michelle, and then sorry, Sheila Eskinder, Robinson, and you take the floor last, but not least. So with this, if we are all in agreement, I can now invite Sheila to take the floor. Over to you, Sheila. Any concluding remarks?
Thank you very much. Firstly, my appreciation for Tana Forum for hosting me today. So my parting shot will be for young people. As young people, let us get out of our comfort zone. Agriculture is the backbone of any development. Let us get into the practice. Let us understand the practicalities involved in agriculture. Let us also understand the policies so that we are able to translate them to outcomes that will enable for sustainable food systems and enhance our food securities in our continent, in our countries, in our villages. Thank you.
This is brilliant. Thank you so much. Eskinder, you may use the opportunity to answer some of these questions. Can Eskinder share his experience on access to credit and market? So these are some of the questions asked to you, but more broadly, you have said it already all in your earlier presentation, but any reaction to what you just listened to? Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Onanga, for moderating us this way. I just want to shortly answer the questions and then I will conclude my statements. So the first thing that I want to say is how is access to credit in market? It's very it's a bottom line for agriculture. So what we, according to my experience, especially in Uganda, there are international banks which are now invited to the country. So they just asking only ideas. Organization, for example, like Reach for Change in Ethiopia, I think there is also in Kenya, in many other African countries, that they has to go with their own ideas. And then one thing that we should know as an African, we need to be very passionate about agriculture. Where agriculture without passion is like running Olympics with barefoot, and it needs really a guts and a passion to go into it. I don't ask all African youth to be farmers. There are doctors, there are engineers, and there has to be great farmers as well to feed us. So it's all about passion. Be passionate like me. I'm a very passionate farmer. I love agriculture to the bottom of my heart. So that's the point. About the credit, you have to know which subsector of agriculture that you invest in it. People are good in poultry. Some people are good in dairy farms, and some are good also in vegetable productions. So you cannot actually come in and grab all this together at once. This is the failure that I have seen in many African countries, that everybody who come to agriculture, they want to invest in all. They want to have poultry, they want to have dairy, and they want to have vegetable. So you should be focused. So it is a very successful business is going to be. So I think you also learn about how to do marketing. Use social media. For example, now I have 10,000 grafted avocados in my farm. So I am using Facebook to reach to my customers. And it is very productive that people came to buy my grafted avocado. So social media is a very important thing. And of course, reaching out to the market, also try to consider smallholder farmers and be affordable for them, not like other farmers and who are now in a very big farming activities, but try to see small scale farming. It's a very important. The smallholder farmer is a potential buyer of your products. So don't undermine the smallholder farmers. Work with them. Be with them just as an expert or as a businessman. You have to work with them. For example, this contract farming is one of great experience that I got from Uganda and Kenya as well. And now in Ethiopia is also implemented. So well, I would like to conclude that food is about survival. If you don't choose agriculture as a business, you cannot see the potential. But you have to grow your own food in the backyard, in the balcony, and practice agriculture. Feeding yourself is one of civilization of humankind. So let's learn growing our food in the backyard, grow our chickens, and feed ourselves first of all. And then we will develop the passion and then go forward to agricultural sector. So thank you so very much for this opportunity, Mr. Oninga, and all those participants and then all of them in this panel. And I would like to thank Tana Forum for this. You highly welcome to Ethiopia to visit what I'm doing so far on the ground, because agriculture is not a paperwork. Agriculture is a job that is on the ground. So like my sister said before, get out of your comfort zone, take the hoe, dig the land, and God will give you the reward. Even the human can give you actually the blessings. Thank you so very much.
Wonderful, wonderfully said. And I think Mushangole wants to react to this absolutely brilliant concluding points. Mushangole, please, the floor is yours. Are you with us? Well, it doesn't look like Mushangole was able to connect, but he may come back at before we conclude this session. But again, thank you so much, Eskinder, for sharing the passion. I think in life there are very few things that we can achieve without passion. And if you add to this compassion, you bring a greater meaning to your endeavors, because at the end of the day, it's about the people. So really, thank you so much for this. And I would be curious to visit your farm, being in Ethiopia these days. So maybe we need to get in touch so that you can share with me some of your amazing secrets.
I will, sir. I definitely want to share. Mr. Onanga, you're highly welcome to Ethiopia.
Wonderful. Thank you. And as well as we can do it online, but I think if you go through the Tana Forum Secretariat, they may be able to share with you my contact details, and then we'll be in touch. But again, thank you so much for your contribution. Now, let me go to Romilson. Romilson, c'est à ton tour de prendre la parole pour quelques commentaires de...
Mr. Robinson, you have the floor to make your closing comments.
Merci. Merci encore une fois.
Thank you once more.
Je vais parler d'abord par rapport à l'agriculture, le thème de l'agriculture.
Regarding the theme of agriculture,
je veux dire que les jeunes ont de potentiel pour transformer la société.
People have the potential to change the society.
On peut utiliser pour transformer l'agriculture aussi.
To transform agriculture as well.
Beaucoup d'énergie. Mais je pense
youth
aussi
have a lot of energy,
que nous devons aussi penser à comment financer ces jeunes.
We need to see how we can finance
le crédit, le financement, comment voir, parce que quand des fois, la banque demande la sécurité, qu'est-ce que nous pouvons, les jeunes pouvons donner en tant que sécurité pour prendre des crédits. Voilà, quand il n'y a pas de financement. Et
and there is
là,
no
je
financing
pense
available.
d'avoir comment faciliter les jeunes pour avoir l'accès à crédit pour financer les projets,
access to
les
loan for the
initiatives.
youth
Il
for
y a
their projects.
il y a des jeunes qui ne peuvent pas financer, mais ils ont de bons projets, mais ils n'ont pas de financement.
Some of them have good ideas, but don't have the financing.
Comme avaient dit les autres jeunes, vraiment, il faut que les jeunes
like
ciblent,
it has been said,
il faut choisir un domaine qu'il aime, qu'il maîtrise bien et concentrer dessus. Parce que c'est sûr qu'il va avoir de retenue. Parce que l'agriculture, qu'est-ce que soit, il donne. Il donne toujours. Mais il faut être patient, il faut être là, il faut aimer qu'est-ce que tu fais. Voilà. Sur la paix et la sécurité, je pense qu'il faut occuper les jeunes. Quand les jeunes sont occupés, ils n'ont pas de temps pour faire des choses nouvelles. Donc, le training, la formation, le renforcement des capacités dans les communautés, création de leur propre emploi, de leur propre entreprise, ça va changer, ça fait toute la différence. Il y a des exemples de jeunes qui étaient récupérés dans les groupes d'armées, qui étaient regroupés dans la société. Aujourd'hui, c'est quelqu'un de bien. Voilà, comme cet exemple, il y aura plusieurs. Donc, on peut le répéter, on peut récupérer ces jeunes qui sont dans la communauté qui n'ont rien à faire et donner des capacités pour pouvoir créer leur propre entreprise ou bien aller dans l'agriculture, il faut quelque chose.
Encourage them.
Donc, c'est ça de remarques et j'étais vraiment content d'écouter aussi d'autres jeunes, voir qu'il y a de l'énergie. C'est pas seulement de s'écouter, mais partout en Afrique. Quand on va sur le terrain, on voit que les jeunes entendent faire. Il y a des jeunes qui n'ont pas de possibilité de venir sur les réseaux sociaux, mais quand on va directement à leur communauté, on voit des choses magnifiques, de créativité. Par exemple, dans le cas de pandémie de Covid, depuis l'année passée, on a remarqué beaucoup de créativité. Par exemple, il avait des entreprises au niveau digital parce que les gens ne pouvaient pas se déplacer pour aller prendre de leurs produits. Mais cette entreprise a facilité beaucoup. Et aujourd'hui, c'est un domaine qui crée comment on appelle ça en français,
during the COVID-19.
Bon, mais sinon, c'est le commerce digital. C'est un gros consens en Afrique aussi. C'est une opportunité. Donc, les compétences informatiques et tout ça, ça peut améliorer les capacités des jeunes et donner l'opportunité et un espoir aux jeunes. Je finis par ici. Remercie à Tana Secretariat pour l'invitation, à monsieur Onanga pour cette belle modération. Vraiment, je suis très fier d'être parmi vous.
And I'm very proud to be with you.
Voilà, et pour finir, je pense que je n'avais pas à le faire avant, mais je le fais maintenant. Moi, je suis Romilson Silveira. Je viens de Sao Tomé et Principe. Je suis avocat de profession et aussi activiste social.
And social activist. Merci. If I didn't have the chance to present myself earlier. Absolutely. Thank you, Romilson. In the beginning, we tried to introduce you. You had connectivity problems. So we gave the floor to Michel, but I made sure to introduce you. And it's remarkable to see that a young lawyer like you is taking interest in the continent and the youth continent. I do totally agree which show that we need to occupy the youth, and we need to give them future perspectives. And you insisted on financing, which are crucial. Thank you very much for your participation. Very rich and concrete initiatives across the continent for the youth. And I'm sure that the exchanges and the richness and the wealth of exchanges will encourage Tana Forum, UNESCO to have this type of class form. And thank you very much.
And I was glad to hear from you that you don't exclude me from the youth group. That white hair does not necessarily exclude you from the youth group, and I do agree that we should not be also boxing, youth, because in Africa, if you share the same background, you will hardly be an adult, in the midst of your parents, regardless of your age. So we all young, and therefore we all have a responsibility indeed to make sure that we transform this beautiful continent. But Michelle, we back to you, back at the kind of broad policy picture level that you so well outlined at the beginning of your comments. And I just want to see whether you have some more as you conclude. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you very much, sir. And I would like to thank the organizers, the Tana Forum, the UNESCO, and all partners involved for this graceful event. You have esteemed us all, and you have given us a voice as youth who are passionate about sustaining our food systems in Africa. Thank you so much. And I agree with you, sir, there is no need to be boxing. As youth, I think we shouldn't make it a habit to be always angry and to always be in defensive or attacking mode. There is a lot we don't know, and we must admit that. So mindset change is key in achieving sustainable food systems for Africa across the ages. We don't need to compete with each other. Let's collaborate with the elders, and we can learn from them, from their vast experiences. Mentorship, even in traditional food systems, is important. And then we can match the two with modern evolved food systems. Collaboration is key to ensure intergenerational sync and multilateral harmony, which is much needed for the development and sustainability of our continent. I also noticed that there is something which we didn't talk about, all the speakers. We forgot to talk about waste management, which is becoming a problem, especially in this COVID-19 era. Everyone is staying at home or in one place, and there is a lot of waste which is being generated. And as producers of food, we should be responsible that we should go over and through into the value chain and be responsible in managing waste as well. We also need to be managing our greenhouses, the greenhouse gases emissions, in order to protect our ozone and to contribute positively to managing global warming. And while we are creating our businesses, while we are being integrated into whatever programs are there, let us carry other youths along. Let us employ other youths into the food systems we are working in and into our businesses. We also need to ensure that there is an enablement of market growth in the public sector action to incentivize climate resilient and low emission practices. We need also to support prosperity through mobility and rural reinvigoration, and maybe help farmers make better choices on what works best in their region. and securing resilient livelihoods and value chains through early warning systems and adaptive safety nets. With this climate change, you see that what used to work maybe 2 decades ago is not necessarily the same which is working now. So with climate change taking center stage in this era, we also need to review what we are being taught even in our schools. Our curriculums can improve or can be aligned to the climatic patterns which are now prevalent in this day and age. So also it's not enough to say that we have enough food in Africa to curb malnutrition. Our debate should also shift to talking about healthy food. What is it that we are growing? Yes, we want to become farmers, whatever you are farming, crop or animals, but we need to be farming healthy. We need healthy food systems in our continent. And we also need to drive social change for more sustainable decisions. Even if you are in the urban areas, even if you don't have land. I have seen in developed countries, they are farming on rooftops. Israel and other countries like Dubai, some of those countries, they have greater parts of deserts, but they are sustaining their region. And even when we do not have arable land, innovation is key. Let us be solution-oriented in order to transform innovation systems to deliver the impact at scale. And while we are bringing innovation as youth, let us remember that we need to register our work, we need to patent our work, and when we harvest from that which we have worked for, it will encourage us and drive our energy away from conflict and input it positively into our economies and become a food sustainable continent. With that, I thank you, sir, for the platform.
Wonderful. We cannot conclude on a better note. Michelle, thank you so much for indeed raising all these absolutely substantive issues. In my introductory comments, I referred to the recent IPCC report on the impact of climate change to our world, and it is clear that as we engage in making sure that agriculture becomes a driving kind of force for the transformative, for the transformation of this continent, this development, achievement of the goals, be it you know, the SDGs or the vision for the 2063 Africa. All of these can no longer be done if we are not indeed mindful of you know, global warming and the need to ensure that any of our engagements are really in line with sustainability. We do have a collective responsibility indeed, and this is something that we cannot really emphasize enough. Now, it's a broader conversation, and my boss, you know, has been championing this, calling for climate justice as well. As you know, on this part of the world, we kind of are on the receiving end, where the biggest polluters really are, you know, the impact of those who pollute the least, who contribute the least to global warming, are those most affected, because unfortunately they don't always have the resources to adapt and mitigate, you know, the deadly effect of global warming on our global world. So we are in this together. definitely. And I think I will be leaving this meeting before I pass on the floor to our organizers to close our meeting this afternoon. I should really be grateful, express my gratitude to each and every one of you. I mean, you're the amazing panelists, the amazing contributors, all of you for your insights, your rich understanding of the critical challenges this continent is facing. But I leave even more hopeful in the huge potential, the vast knowledge and experience that you guys have been able to share with us today. I remain indeed this prisoner of hope in the immense potential of this continent to not only leapfrog, but to lead the way to a different and a better world for all of us. So again, thank you so much. And without further ado, I will just hand over to Letty and thank them for the opportunity to bring me to this conversation, which is far away, or which I used to see as far away from my comfort zone. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing if there is any a summary record of this absolutely forceful, rich conversation. If you could share it with all of us, Letty and friends. Thanks again for the opportunity. Over to you, Letty.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Parfait. Good afternoon, everyone, Uncle. Thank you ever so much. A lot has been unpacked in today's forum, which in summary includes the clear link between food security and all other securities or insecurities, if you may, including sustainable peace and security, which was clearly articulated and outlined. One other thing that panelists discussed and outlined in detail was the need for inclusive policies in the agriculture and food security sectors, and the need for the youth to be included in those processes where such policies are designed. It was also emphasized that the youth need to boost food production, crop diversification, tackle climate change, and many other related topics through their active participation in these areas. The need for the youth to be involved in agriculture should be supported, heavily supported with incentives through access to relevant practical training, finance, land, markets, and food distribution processes. According to FAO, food security can only exist when everyone has access to physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. We also heard how the youth can bring innovative new ideas to the food system processes and the agriculture through use of technologies, social media, and new modern machineries. It was also tabled that African leaders and decision makers need to actively seek the inclusion and full participation of the youth in politics, governance, peace building, and peace-making processes to help foster sustainable peace. Conflict, war, disputes, health pandemics, such as the one that we're going through right now, climate change, highly affect food security in Africa, and mitigating factors should be put in place to combat them. Lastly, the youth should not wait until they are invited. They need to demand their space by being active change agents of socioeconomic development themselves, including full participation in the food security and sustainable peace and security processes. there's a lot that was thrown at the Tana Secretariat, which, by the way, is under IPSS. Would be more than happy to work with UNESCO to develop a policy brief as an outcome from this meeting in the nexus of food security and sustainable peace and security, which may then be shared with a wide set of stakeholders. Also, the networking platform requests have also been noted. We hope our youth wing at IPSS will follow up on that one. Finally, I would like to say my special thanks to all the panelists, moderators, and participants for your active participation from the morning till now and sharing of valuable, very valuable insights. I would also once again like to thank our partner UNESCO for the collaboration on this Pre-Tana forum, and we look forward to working with you on many other follow-up joint events. I'd also like to thank the two planning teams from IPSS and UNESCO for a job well done. I think you agree with me that this has been excellently implemented. Finally, we hope to see most of you in October, either physically in Barada or virtual at the 10th Tana Forum, where a number of sub-themes will be discussed under the overarching theme of managing security threats and building resilience for the Africa that we want. I thank you.
Letty, I'm no longer in the lead, but thank you so much for this very substantive, really wrap up. Since I have the floor, or maybe you want to take the floor and invite Professor Hubert to speak, it's up to you.
Yes, then I take a pleasure to invite Professor to say his closing remarks. Over to you, sir.
Letty, I'm not sure if Professor is with us.
Okay, I think on that note, Rubiat, I think we close the meeting and possibly maybe do you want to say some lasting word or something? Rubiat?
Yes, I would like to thank His Excellency for accepting our invitation and moderating the session. It has been very engaging and very lively. Thank you so much again. And also the panelists for a wonderful job done, for your invaluable insight and contributions, and all participants. At last, I'd like to inform you that outcomes of the session will be shared with all of you in the coming weeks, and also feed into the main discussions at the Tana main forum discussions. And I hope we will see you in our next pre-forum, which will be next Thursday. And for now, it's goodbye and good night or good afternoon from us. So thank you and have bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert. We adjourn until next time. Thank you. Thank you all.